Okay, this is Notes 1.5, Solving Inequalities. So I wouldn't worry too much about what this says. So let's just look at quickly at a few examples just to explain a few things here. On this one right here, all you have to do is solve like you normally would any other linear function. All right, and if you do that, you would get 16. Notice that the inequality stays the same in this case, right? And now if you're looking at this, all I really want for an answer is this. If you really want to know what that means, it's just a more mathematical way of talking about the solution. That means the solution set is the set, hence this little brackets, the set of all x's such that little line means such that x is greater than 16. So again, that means the solution set is the set of all x's such that x is greater than 16. However, we're not going to worry about that. All right, I just wanted to tell you that. Now, notice that we're also going to have to shade a graph. And if x is greater than, they're going to shade to the right. All right, if x is greater than, you're going to shade to the right because you can see the numbers getting bigger from left to right. Okay. Now on this other one, and notice that I have an open dot, and it's open because this is not equal to. This is just greater than. So that means this is actually bigger than 16. So 16 is not included. All right, on example 2, same idea. Notice that you solve like you normally would any other linear function, but once you get to right here, right, notice that they divided both sides by -3, and when they did, that actually switched that inequality. If you look at it, the inequality is different than that. All right, so it went from w is greater than to w is less than. All right, so that'll happen. You will switch the inequality only when you divide or multiply by a negative number. And then finally, w is less than or equal to -6. Now because w is equal to -6, you're going to fill in this dot, which means the -6 is part of the answer. Now less than means you're going to shade to the left because the numbers are getting smaller as you go farther left. As you go towards the left, the numbers actually get more and more negative or smaller and smaller. Okay, so let's just go ahead and go straight to some of the exercises. Okay. So notice that right here we're going to start off by, you can do it two ways. You can distribute if you like on this problem. Okay. But notice that this is 7 times this quantity. Now, if you have a calculator, or maybe if you can come up with it in your head, I know that 84 can be divided by 7. And since you're multiplying 7 times all of this, I can actually divide both sides to get rid of the 7. And if I divide both sides, and I have 7a minus 9 is less than or equal to 12. Alright, I'm going to add a 9 to each side. So we're going to solve. Notice that I'm not doing anything with inequality. Just leave that alone. There's only one little thing you have to think about, and we are not there yet. So we have 7a is less than or equal to 21, and then finally we're going to divide. And a is less than or equal to 3. So that's the answer for that. Now to shade this, remember this is going to be equal to, so a is equal to 3, but it's also less than, so a is less than or equal to 3, so we're going to shade to the left. Alright, so we're going to shade to the left. And if you have a pencil, that may look better. If you have a pen, just make sure that I can tell that you shaded on the left. Alright, on number 2, don't divide by 3 in this one, because I just noticed that if I divide this by 3 and that by 3, that's going to give me fractions, and I don't want to deal with that. So on this one I will distribute. So this is going to be 27z plus 12 is greater than 35z minus 4. Alright, and then at that point I'm going to solve like I normally would any other equation, which means I'm going to get all the variables on one side, or all the z's in this case, to one side and the number on the other. So I'm going to subtract 35z from each side, and that's going to give me a negative 8z plus 12 is greater than negative 4. Alright, and the next step would be to get this number on the other side. I want to isolate the variable. So that's going to give me negative 8. Z is greater than negative 16. And then finally, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 8. Alright, I know I went through this one kind of fast, so if you need to rewatch it, just rewind, okay? So on this one is going to be slightly different because when you divide, only when you divide or multiply by a negative, that actually switches the inequality. Alright, so in this case, since this is greater than, that will switch the inequality to less than. Alright, so this is going to be Z is less than 2. So on this one, notice that because 2 is not included, I'm going to have an open dot right there because 2 is not part of the solution set. And then now I am going to shade to the left. Again, I'm shading to the left because Z is less than, alright? And less on a number line is to the left. Alright, on number 3, I'm just going to give you the answer, number 3. That will be your answer. See if you can actually figure that out on your own. And also, see if you can shade the correct area. Now remember, n is greater than negative 7. So see if you can do that one. On the back. I'm going to put this on the screen for just a second. So if you want to work on that problem on your own or try to see if you understand how to do it, you can go ahead and do that now. Okay, so assuming that you actually looked through this problem, we can go ahead and go do some more exercises. Now, the first 3 exercises on this page, they have nothing to do with a word problem, right? So they're just going to be multi-step. So we're going to try to solve each inequality. On this one, you can do it 2 ways. You can multiply both sides times 3 if you like. Or if you put this over 1, you can cross multiply. However you want to do it. But no matter how you do it, whether you multiply both sides by 3 or cross multiply, both of us should have this next step. Right, finally, not finally, still got a couple of steps. I'm going to subtract C from each side. So we have 2C is greater than or equal to 4. And then finally I'm going to divide by 2. So C is greater than or equal to 2. Alright, notice that I did not divide by negative, so the inequality just basically stayed the same the whole time. So since 2 is part of the solution, I'm going to fill in that dot. So if it's equal to, make sure you fill in that dot. Now it says C is greater than. So if it's greater than, I will shade everything to the right because on the number line, everything gets bigger to the right. Alright, on number 2, alright, we'll do this one real fast. And by this point, you might have been like, yes, I got it. Well, if that's the case, then pass forward through this problem then. So now, on this one right here, I want to get the r's on one side and the numbers on the other. Alright? You could also subtract r from this side if you like. Really up to you. It will give you the same answer. So this is going to be negative 5r plus 7 is less than negative 18. Then we're going to subtract 7 from each side. So we have negative 5r is less than negative 25. And then remember, when we divide by negative, that is going to switch the inequality. So now this is going to be r is greater than, right? It's going to be greater than 5. So don't forget, only when you divide or multiply by negative, that's the only thing that switches the inequality. So let's go ahead and graph this. So since this is, notice this is just r is greater than 5. This is not r is equal to 5, right? or greater than or equal to. Since it's not, then 5 is not part of the solution. So I'm going to write that as an open dot, and I'm going to shade to the right, because in the number line, if you just look at these numbers, they're getting bigger as you go to the right. Okay, so let's go ahead and go over this word problem, and at this point I hope you haven't turned off the video, because most of you are pretty terrible about actually even reading the word problem. Alright, so I want to take a little bit of time, pause here if you have to, read the problem and try to see if you can do it. So just set a timer if you like, give yourself a couple of minutes to let's say maximum 5 minutes to try to figure out if you can come up with at least the formula or the solution. Okay, so assuming you've done that, alright, this is how we're going to do this problem. Now, it says that Jim wants to make, or he makes $5.75 an hour, and 26% of that is deducted for taxes. And then he wants to know how many hours, alright, so he wants to know how many hours does he have to work to take, for his take-home pay of to be at least, and that's a key word, at least 110 per week. Alright, so that at least means that I'm going to have an inequality here. So if Jim makes $5.75 per hour, so if I multiply this by the hours, I would have the amount of money he's making per week. Alright, however, it says that 26% of that is deducted for taxes. Now, if you think about it, if somebody's deducting 26% off your paycheck, well, you should have 74% of your paycheck. Okay? So, again, you have 74% of your paycheck that you're going to take home. The 26% is going to go to taxes. Now, notice that I wrote it as 0.74 because if you want to write 74% as a percentage, you need to divide by 100, which will give you 0.74. Alright, so for example, for anybody, next time you go to the mall and there's something that's 35% off, well, you can multiply the price of whatever item you're buying times, in this case, if it was 35% off, you would multiply that times 0.65, and that will tell you exactly how much you're going to pay, okay, instead of subtracting and all that. So that's what I'm going to have right now. And now it says that I want that pay to be at least 110. So that seems to be trouble for some people. If it says at least, that means that I want this quantity over here, which is what is getting paid, to be greater than or equal to 110. Alright, so at least means that this quantity right here has to be greater than or equal to. Right, after that it becomes a simpler problem. Alright, at this point I would suggest use a calculator. Alright, don't kill yourself on just multiplying the decimals here. So grab a 4-function calculator on your phone if you have to, and then use it. So if you multiply those two things right here, you would get 4.255 hours is greater than 110. And then after that, you're just going to simply divide both sides by that number. Alright. And when you do, if you plug that in your calculator, you get H is greater than or equal to 25.851. Or basically, he has to work about 26 hours, right, to make at least 110 or more. Okay, I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions on this specific problem, also make sure you bring those questions with you tomorrow.